requires a bit of a backstory. I have a friend who is a seventh generation Hoodoo seer and medium, and we did an exchange of goods and services back in January. I got a life path reading in exchange for making her social media marketing materials for her small business. Very quickly, she told me my sister, who I care for, has something dark attached to her. My sister is schizophrenic, and she had made the claim that something is messing with her mind, and before this reading she was the worst mentally that I had seen in a very long time. I asked the seer to describe the entity, and she told me the exact same thing my sister had: big, dark, sticky, and has friends with it. So the seer walked me through a protection ritual, which I did, and when I got to my sister's room, I stopped at her full length mirror and got my face real close to it to fuzz with a zit and sniff. Smelled like straight up sulfur. Bad. And that smell gave me this deep primal gut feeling of danger. I took that shit outside and smashed it to hell. I didn't know what else to do. I hope that was the right thing. For curious minds, here's more of the story that doesn't have to do with a mirror. I am a hardcore skeptic, and even though this was a friend of mine, I still ran my little legitimacy tests throughout the reading, and I was constantly looking for signs of schizophrenia. And I'm 100% convinced she is the real deal. I waited until my sister was away to do the protection ritual. I kept her in the dark about everything because I didn't want a self-fulfilling prophecy situation. When she got home, she was the best mentally that I had ever seen her in over a decade. The seer said the entities were feeding off of her and bombarding her, and once I do the protection ritual, she wouldn't be surprised if my sister let out an audible gasp. The seer also told me that my sister was going to see one of the protection symbols I put up and either rip it down or insult it, and then immediately say, I don't know why I did that, and I should know that it was the dark entity speaking through her. So I drew the symbols on the actual walls so she couldn't rip them down. When she saw them, she said in a snarky tone, I saw the swastikas you have put up, snaps out of it, and then says, I don't know why I said that. The seer also said the entity was going to be mad I took away its toy, and it was going to show me, and boy did it. For the next 3 to 4 days, I kept seeing movement out of the windows. I felt on edge and watched. Something would slam on the side of the house, and things were falling and breaking when I was the most kiddish. My two kitties stayed on each side of me all the time like they were on guard, or all four kitties in the house would sit in a semicircle facing a door or a window. It was the most afraid I have been in a very long time. Another thing to note is the seer said that there's an event in our future that's going to change a lot of things for us, and if we don't take the opportunity, we won't enter 2025. The suffering will be too much. What is particularly interesting about this is I didn't mention to her that I had been thinking about the old double dignified unalive, if you get my drift, not once. And I had been thinking about it in a daydreaming kind of way. I had been thinking about the logistics of putting the wheels in motion and where I was going to draw the line to execute the plan. Then she said, so don't get the helium just yet. And my eyes instantly got wide and I froze. Because that was the plan and I never mentioned that at all. The entire experience changed my entire worldview. So that's my story, the end. I have definitely had a few experiences with mirrors that makes me nervous about them, but I don't know if they are terrifying. First, when I was a child, I was in an abusive household where my mom would drug me, which caused me to sleepwalk nearly every night and also feel nauseous, so I was in the bathroom a lot. I recall getting up and going to the main hallway bathroom when, while washing my hands, I looked in the mirror. It was dark. I hadn't bothered to turn on the light because going to the washroom during the night was something I was quite used to. Upon looking up at my reflection, I see my eyes change to yellow. I stared at myself for a bit, blinking, seeing I was back to normal and was wondering if I had actually seen that. I went back to my room and woke my sister who slept on the top bunk and told her what I saw, but she said it was just remnants of sleep and that I was dreaming. Then, over the years, I got sort of obsessed with how mirrors worked and would constantly test them. I would swear that I would see things move. Or in my mom's ensuite bathroom, she had a trifold mirror, and when I would fold them all in, even my sister said that the other reflections, which should have been all perfect, looked blurry compared to the middle panel. My dad admitted he had a phobia of them as well and has a hard time looking at himself at night, has to make his eyes trace a line up to actually face himself or avoids it entirely. I ended up moving to a condo with my husband when we were first married. It was a new build, so I didn't expect anything strange happenings there, but there were. Most of them occurred in the bathroom. There were these vanity row lights above the mirror, which I had a habit of avoiding altogether. Besides, when I was getting myself ready for work in the mornings, the row lights always had one bulb that would flicker but would burn out sometimes. It started getting really on my nerves and really affecting me. It was a row of four, but it was always the last bulb, which made it so the other side of the bathroom was always dark. My husband assured me it was just faulty wiring. But then nearly every day it wasn't just flickering, it would go out. I didn't attempt to bang the wall under it or flick the switch anymore. I felt like it was trying to bother me. So I tried to just hurry and get out of there when it happened. Because the lights were high on the wall, I would ask my husband to replace them when they went out, and eventually he got upset and said that every time he comes home, the lighting is working fine. He thought I was going crazy. He switched it once to an incandescent bulb and I heard the filament pop when it burnt out. I sent a picture to my husband. That night when we were home from work, it was working fine. It wasn't until I had had a very bad day and came home early from work, drew myself a bath, and my husband also had a bad day and got off early, that he ended up seeing the bulb burn out and feeling the off energy in there. That place also had a mirror on the hall that both my husband and I saw things move in. The dog also barked at it a lot but never reacted to her own reflection in anything else. Later, we almost moved to a place that had a room where two walls were floor to ceiling mirrors and our 1-year-old daughter was terrified. I was really glad when the house inspection came back and had a problem with the foundations, so we couldn't buy it. At our current house, strange things happen all the time. I'm not really scared of our bathroom, but the bulb thing has started happening again. Same side of the bathroom, different type of light fixture. It's also over top the mirror and makes me a bit anxious to look at myself in the mirror at times. This happened more than a decade ago, around 2006 or 2007. My aunt bought a fully furnished condo unit in one of the newly built residences in Pasig. I won't mention the name of the residential area, especially since it still exists to this day. My aunt loves buying and collecting antique furniture, especially those made from Nara wood. Most of the furniture in their home in Alabank is also antique. Anyway, back to the story. So, as usual, my aunt filled the new condo with antique pieces. The antique mirror was her last purchase. I remember she even reserved a spot for it in the unit's living room. She told me the mirror came from an antique shop in Bulacan. It caught her attention because of the intricate frame design and she thought it would look great in her living area. It was a weekend when the mirror got delivered. I was there because I used to babysit my cousin while my aunt was away on business. I even asked the delivery guy to hang the mirror in the exact same spot my aunt had saved. Nothing unusual happened during the first 1 or 2 weeks, or at least that's what I thought. I only stayed there on weekends, and most of the time no one else stayed there either. My aunt was always busy with work and my cousin was in school during the day. About a month later, my aunt hired a maid slash nanny to take care of the unit and look after my cousin while she was abroad. That's when the creepy stuff started. I'll try to break it down into parts because there were a lot of unexplainable incidents. Just for context, it was a 3 bedroom unit with a balcony. When you enter, there's a washroom on the left, then an 8 to 10 step hallway. On the left is the kitchen area with an island, and right in front of that is the dining area. On the right, there are 3 doors: the maid's slash laundry room, my aunt's room, and my cousin's room. A huge arc separates the kitchen slash dining slash maid's area from the living room. Beside the living room is a sliding door that leads to the balcony. Yes, I know, it's a huge ass condo. The mirror was hung between my aunt's room and my cousin's room, meaning every time you went to my cousin's room or the balcony, you would pass by the mirror. Let me start with my own experience. It was a Friday. I went straight to the condo again to babysit my cousins since it was the maid's day off. I arrived around 6 p.m. I had my own keys, so I let myself in. The maid had already left. I checked on my cousin who was in his room playing with his console. I went to the kitchen to see what food we could have for dinner. There was some adobo and cooked rice covered on the dining table. I decided to call my cousin so we could eat together. While walking to his room, I noticed something weird in the mirror. It looked like something followed me in my reflection. You know, when it seems like your reflection is slightly delayed. I walked back to the mirror to double check, but everything seemed normal this time. I just told myself maybe I was hungry and imagining things. I brushed it off and called my cousin to eat. Around 9 p.m., I had just taken a shower. I stepped out of my cousin's room to brush my teeth and do my nightly skincare routine in the living room area. I went straight to the mirror to apply toner when I felt something really off. It felt like something inside the mirror was copying me. I know that sounds funny. Of course, a mirror shows your reflection, right? But this felt different. Whatever it wasn't me, and even though it was mimicking my movements, I got seriously creeped out, finished my routine as fast as I could, and went straight to my cousin's room to sleep. After that incident, I didn't go back to the condo for a few weeks because of personal stuff. I eventually visited again after about a month, but this time with my 2 siblings. It was a Saturday, and again the maid was off, so we had the place to ourselves. It was late, around 10 or 11 p.m. We were in my cousin's room playing video games when we suddenly heard rummaging sounds coming from outside the room. At first, we thought maybe someone broke into the unit. We were terrified. My brother rushed to the door and locked it, and all 4 of us huddled on the bed. Then we heard loud banging on the bedroom door, more rummaging, and doors slamming shut. My cousin and little sister started crying. I couldn't even call for help because the landline was in the living room. The banging, slamming, and rummaging lasted for what felt like 30 minutes. I still get chills just thinking about it. When it finally stopped, my brother and I went out to check and found the living room and kitchen completely trashed. I grabbed my bag and told everyone we had to get out immediately. We left and go straight to our house in Albank. We were just 2 teens and 2 kids, all shaking from what we had experienced. I didn't tell anyone what I saw in the mirror. 3 women wearing black veils staring at me and my brother with angry expressions. I was terrified and shocked at the same time. I didn't go back for months, and even my cousin refused to stay there anymore. When my aunt came back from her trip abroad, we told her everything. She immediately had the condo blessed. I attended the blessing and even suggested they bless the mirror too because again, there's definitely something wrong with that item. After the condo blessing, we thought whatever that entity in the mirror was had finally left. We never expected it to become even more aggressive than before. Now I'll share the story of the maid slash nanny my aunt hired. We rarely crossed paths whenever I visited the condo because She was usually gone by the time I arrived, but now I understand why she was always in such a hurry to leave during her scheduled time off. Let's call her Lean. As a stay-in maid, she was alone in the condo most of the time, especially on weekdays. She experienced a lot of unexplainable things inside the unit, but I'll just share a few that are absolutely terrifying. On her second or third week of staying there, she already felt something was off, but she brushed it off thinking it wasn't harming her. Sometimes while she was cooking, the fridge would suddenly open, the bathroom door would slam shut, the TV would turn on by itself, or kitchen drawers would slide open. You know, the usual paradigm of a ghostly entity. She kept ignoring it. Honestly, I was amazed by how tough she was because if that happened to me, I would have run for my life. Days, weeks, even months went by, and she said she eventually got used to the minimal disturbances until one day things started to get violent. The entity began pulling her hair while she was doing the laundry, yanking her feet while she was sleeping, turning off the lights while she was in the shower, even whispering a harsh ha sound in her ear. Sometimes a cold breeze would brush against the back of her neck. That's when she really started to get scared. There were nights when she was alone because my aunt and cousin were staying over at their house in Alabang. During those times, she would hear rummaging sounds in the living room while she was in the bedroom. She heard creepy, echoing laughter of a woman, knocking sounds, and the doorknob of her room violently shaking as if someone wanted to get in. She told my aunt about all of it, but my aunt brushed it off and told her it was just her imagination and that she should pray more. Yes, my aunt was kind of an asshole for ignoring her complaints at the time. Lean told me she really wanted to resign, but she couldn't afford to. She badly needed the money, and my aunt was the only one who paid her well and treated her like family. Here's the most unforgettable story Lean ever told me. This happened about a week after the house blessing. As usual, she was cleaning and preparing dinner. My aunt was working late and my cousin was doing schoolwork in the living area. Lean was chopping ingredients when she went to grab something from the fridge. Then she noticed the knife she had been just using was floating. Slowly it turned and pointed directly at her. She was stunned. She screamed and called out to my cousin. She grabbed him and ran straight out to the door to the reception area. I still get chills every time I think about it. She used the landline at the reception desk to call my aunt and told her everything. My aunt rushed home as soon as she heard the story and apologized to Lean for brushing off her earlier complaints. This time, she believed her especially because my cousin saw the floating knife too. After that, they grabbed some of their personal belongings and stayed in Alabang for a few months. The condo was basically abandoned for a while. My cousin told me a few stories too, but the entity never seemed violent toward him. He only experienced the rummaging noises and knocking sounds. But the knife incident traumatized him so badly that he refuses to go back there ever again. The condo unit was basically abandoned for a few months because of the knife incident. My aunt decided to have the place blessed again. This time, only the priest, two altar servers, my aunt, my mom, and dad, and Lean attended the house blessing. Spoiler alert, the blessing did not end well. My mom told me that the moment they entered the condo, you could immediately feel the eerie vibe as if something was already living there, a strong feeling that they were no longer welcome. She also mentioned there was a strange, unpleasant smell in the place. The blessing started like normal. The priest said some prayers, lit the incense, and began walking around the condo. But when they got to the living area where the mirror was, a sudden gush of wind hit all of them. It was impossible because the balcony door was closed. Then objects began floating and were suddenly thrown towards them. The priest even got injured when something hit him in the head. They all rushed out, and my aunt started crying. I think that's when she finally realized how serious this was. The priest told her that what she needed wasn't a blessing, she needed an exorcist to get rid of whatever entity was living there. At that time, there were only a few exorcists in the Philippines, and it was a long process to get one. It needed official endorsement from the church and a lot of paperwork. My aunt was so desperate that she started looking for paranormal experts. I'm not sure how or where they found them, but eventually, with the help of my mom, they contacted a group from Cebu. My mom kept updating me about what happened during their visit. According to the experts, my aunt had unknowingly welcomed an entity into the condo unit. They confirmed that the problem started with the antique mirror my aunt had purchased. It was cursed and it had infected the rest of the furniture in the house. The entity in the mirror was apparently capable of moving from one object to another, meaning all the furniture in the unit was now cursed. The experts tried to communicate with the entity and ask it to leave, but it was too strong enough that they feared for their own safety. There really wasn't much they could do. They strongly advised my mom and aunt not to bring any furniture from the condo to another house or else the curse could spread there too. My aunt was devastated. From that point on, she completely stopped buying and collecting antique furniture. She even sold her entire collection at a bargain price just to get rid of it. This may sound like a made up story, but fuck, I'm telling you, it creeps me out every single time. Around 2010, during this time, my aunt who owns the condo unit had already migrated to the US with my cousin. The unit had been abandoned for years, but Lean, yes, she was still their maid at that time, though was staying in Alabank with my grandparents, would occasionally go there. She was asked by my Lola to clean the place at least once a month for some extra pay. So far, according to her, no paradigm. My older cousin Lily, not her real name, visited the Philippines from the US for a month-long vacation with her parents. Lily and I are close. She is talkative, happy-go-lucky girl, funny and always joking around. Her parents, Auntie Belle and Uncle Roy, not their real names, are super religious and at the same time don't believe in anything paranormal. If you share a ghost story with them, they will say something like, "You are just lacking prayers, that's why Satan is getting into your head." Here's the funny part. Despite the multiple warnings from those of us who have experienced creepy stuff in that condo, they specifically requested to stay there for their entire vacation. Their reason was more accessible for getting around Metro Manila compared to staying in Alabang. So, okay, I say to myself at the time, I hope praying is enough for whatever entity is there to spare them. Spoiler again, they didn't even last 2 weeks there before they packed up and returned to Alabang to spend the rest of their vacation. It all started when Auntie Belle noticed Lily constantly staring at the antique mirror. At first, they brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just checking herself out. But then it started happening more frequently. Around midnight, they began hearing someone talking in the living room. When Auntie Belle went to check, she found Lily talking to the mirror, mumbling something. When she called Lily's name, it was like Lily snapped out of a trance and just silently went back to bed. Then came the behavior changes. Lily suddenly became aloof and withdrawn. She stayed in her room most of the time, only coming out when called for meals. She would act normal when they were out shopping or malling, but once they were back at the condo, she would go back to being distant and quiet. Her parents were getting weirded out. According to Auntie Belle, they always prayed the rosary before bed. Lily had stopped joining them, always saying she was tired. They let it slide at first, but after scolding her one morning, Lily became agitated and violent, which was completely unlike her. After that, she locked herself in her room. That's when they really started to worry. But this one incident was the last straw. As usual, around midnight, Auntie Belle heard rustling and murmured sound coming from the living room. She started waking Uncle Roy to check what was going on. When Uncle Roy finally woke up, he went out of the room and saw Lily standing on the balcony about to jump. Mind you, the condo unit was on the 10th floor. I have changed the floor number. Uncle Roy immediately shouted her name and Auntie Belle rushed out to see what the commotion was about. Thank goodness they were able to stop Lily in time. She just kept crying and saying over and over, "You don't love me." I know it sounds like a dramatic talesayer, but seriously, this was terrifying. When I later talked to Lily about it, she told me she didn't remember anything. She said it felt like she had been possessed or something. She even admitted that ever since arrived at the condo, she felt like something in the mirror was hypnotizing her. Every time she stared at it, it felt like something was taking over her mind or body. After that terrifying incident, the condo unit has been completely abandoned to this day. The building's residential admin kept everything a secret, probably to avoid scaring off other residents in that same tower. And the story doesn't end here. Anyway, let's get into it. My uncle, let's name him Jake, made the dumbest decision ever. He was fully aware of everything that happened in my aunt's condo unit in Passaic, and yet he still decided to grab some furniture from there and take it to his home in Cavite. He even lied to my mom and Lola, saying my aunt gave him permission. A little background on Uncle Jake. He's a cheapskate and the most hated sibling of all time. He bought a foreclosed property in one of the subdivisions in Cavite through Peg IB bidding. He won the bid and got excited to have the place renovated. But being the cheapskate that he is, he didn't want to spend on new furniture, so of course he decided to grab some from the cursed unit. Remember what the paranormal experts said? Yes, that's exactly why my uncle was a complete dummy. I'll make this part short because honestly this uncle is annoying. He hired a freight truck, asked his friends to help him carry the furniture, and went straight to my aunt's condo unit after collecting the keys from my Lola in Alabank. He took the dining table, chairs, bed frames, cabinets, and yes, the freaking mirror. You heard that right. He even took the same mirror that caused all this paranormal stuff in the first place. My mom was furious at him for basically stealing the furniture from the condo, but we let him be. After about a year or so, we heard that there were tons of ghostly paradigm happening in my uncle's house. He tried to sell the place, but unfortunately, no one wanted to buy it. He even tried to destroy and burn the mirror, but it was too late. The house was already haunted. He had no choice but to abandon it too. We haven't heard any updates about the house in Cavite or even about Uncle Jake. We just know that he migrated to Canada with his mistress. This story is from my brother-in-law. This took place in Mexico in the 90s. My brother-in-law Uriel and his family had a house on the corner of the street. His parents always worked and never had time to do the house chores or look after Uriel, so they hired a housekeeper slash nanny. The nanny was a teenage girl who was around 12 years old. It was acceptable to hire young kids back then in that area. Uriel said that in the beginning everything was great and she did all her chores. The house was pretty big. It was pretty impressive that at her age she was able to keep up with all the cleaning. The family was content with her work and the girl was always happy to help. In the house there was a big staircase that led to the second story. Uriel said as soon as you got on the top step, there was a very big Victorian mirror which was recently given to his parents by some acquaintances. The family started noticing that the girl would always glance at the mirror. The glances then escalated and she began staring at mirror from afar. Soon she would stare to the point where she would stop doing her chores and just stay there for hours at a time. She stopped speaking to anyone and did nothing else but stare at the mirror. She even stopped eating and sleeping. The family became very concerned and alerted her family. When her family came to pick her up, couldn't separate her from the mirror. She was in a sort of hypnotized state. They took her to the local witch doctor, and the witch doctor said something in there had taken her, that it had just left her body behind and nothing could be done. She was in a vegetative state and remained like that for some days. It would all come to an end when Uriel's family ordered to have the mirror stored in the basement. At one point, one of the few people moving it somehow stepped on the mirror and it broke. It shattered into many pieces. Seconds later, the girl's family called Uriel's family, saying that the girl had begun convulsing and that she passed. It was very sad, and the family was devastated. To this day, he still doesn't like talking about this because it scared him so much. I had completely forgotten about this whole thing until I was looking through the cloud on my phone and stumbled across the pictures of the bizarre encounter. Every year, my mom's side of the family goes on a camping trip. We usually go in the woods, but since everyone was getting older, sicker, and less agile, we decided to switch to renting a lake house instead. In July of 2018, it was our first year of trying a house out. Everything went great and it was a lot of fun. There were two floors, the first story and the basement. I slept on the first floor with my sister and one of our cousins, but we hung out in the basement a lot because it was cooler and had easier access to the lake. I love creepy things and my sister does too for the most part. And since the basement had creepy vibes, we got the cousins involved in a game of hide and clap, blindfolded hide and seek where you follow clapping noises until everyone started getting jumpier than usual. My cousin blamed it on how dark it was or something like that, but I suggested that it was because of the creepy mirror on the wall. It was like everyone was just now noticing the thing. I, of course, thought it was the coolest thing ever and asked my cousin to shut the lights off, take some pictures of me in front of it with the flash on my camera. We were all having fun, so she agreed and I did some stupid poses in front of the camera. There are three different pictures, but this is the only one where I found something odd. Now, off to the left in the mirror, you can clearly see the reflection of the back of my head. Over to the right, that's not me. I had my sister and three cousins down there with me, but I remember them all sitting on the couch when the photo was taken. If someone can explain whatever is in the picture, feel free to comment, but needless to say, the rest of my family was not nearly as amused with the mirror as I was. We still went in the basement, but nobody went near the mirror anymore, except me, of course. But as per the wishes of my skeptic family, I didn't take any more pictures or go looking for ghosts.